This project uses quite a bit of CSS3 and we're only just getting started. In this video, we'll create what looks like a glowing screen. Next, we need to make some adjustments to the paragraph text that's inside of the bezel, this SuperVac 9000 here. So we'll go ahead and switch back to our text editor. We want to make sure that we're only selecting the paragraph text that is inside of the bezel and no other paragraph text that will be below that. And we'll give it a font size of 2 Ms. We'll align the text center because we want the label for the SuperVac 9000 to be right below the middle of the screen. We'll give it a color that you can see I've picked out here. And we'll go ahead and switch back to the browser and refresh. And there you can see we now have this nice SuperVac 9000 text. And we'll go ahead and give that a specific font a little bit later. Now it's time to go ahead and move on to the actual screen that will sit inside of this bezel here. So we'll go ahead and switch back to our text editor. We need to go ahead and select our screen, and we'll give it an explicit width of 400 pixels and an explicit height of 260 pixels. We want to give this a background image. Now here's where this gets a little bit tricky. We want to give this a gradient background image to kind of give it a subtle glow, but first we need to make this work in both WebKit and Mozilla, and we want to overlay a nice static image on top of our gradient to just give it a little bit of texture. So we'll be using CSS3 gradients, and we'll also be using multiple backgrounds, which are new in CSS3. And I'm just going to switch back to the browser here. And here you can see that we have this static image. You can't really see it. It's a transparent PNG, but it's definitely there. And when we overlay this on top of our dark gradient, you'll definitely see it a lot more. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this tab, and we'll switch back to the text editor again. And for this background image, we want the static PNG to be on top of the gradient. So we'll go ahead and type out the PNG first. We'll type in URL, and we need to jump out of the CSS directory and then back into the images directory. And we'll type static.png. So I'm just going to go ahead and type WebKit gradient. We'll say radial, center because we want this gradient to be in the middle. And this is actually for the first inner circle. And we'll start that at a radius of 0. And then we want the outer circle to be centered. We'll give that a radius of 300. And we want this gradient to go from a very specific color here, which you'll see in just a second, to another color here. Again, very specific. And to make this work in Mozilla Firefox, we need to do something just a little bit different here, but we'll start off by copying and pasting this background image. And we can keep everything up to here. We need to first change the vendor prefix to Mozilla, and we'll scroll over here. And we basically just need to start from scratch after that. We need to center our gradient, and this is going to be of type circle as opposed to ellipse. We want this to touch the closest corner. Again, we're going to use these same colors. So we want this to go from this dark color at 0% to this even darker color at 100%. And then finally, completely unrelated to these background images, we want to give this screen padding of 50 pixels. So we'll go ahead and go back to the browser and refresh the page. And there you can see we now have this nice glowing screen. So far we have what looks like an old computer monitor. In the next video, we'll start adding a few fonts.